Hey, this is Toddy.
Hi, this is Drew, and we're here to talk about Kamala Harris being elected as vice president, right?
Whoo, we about to have a
Wow.
vice president. What a time to be in, right?
Yeah, so how do you feel about it?
How I feel? Well, I'm thrilled. It's fantastic to know that there's a Black woman who will be our vice president. But how I feel.
First president.
I said vice president.
I
Not
bet.
first president. I mean, well, let's hope nothing happens to
No, maybe.
We don't want no problems. We don't alive. God willing, he'll live throughout his whole terms and all that great jazz.
Right.
I'm happy that she's on the ticket. I think that one of the things that I have been thinking about, I'm like, okay, well, for those of us who know a little bit about her political career, we are aware, that she was a prosecutor and what she did in her professional life in California, and now that she's in Congress. However, it doesn't take away from the fact that I am happy, even though, we are always quick to criticize. And as a researcher, I had to take a little step back. I'm like, okay, there's greatness in this. How can I, how can I stand firm in that and believing in that and going hard for it, right? Anybody but Trump, anybody but Pence, nonetheless. But it's really good to see that there's not just a woman, but a Black woman who's running on the ticket. How do you feel, Andrew?
I mean, as far as politicians on the national stage, Black, white, male, female, she's a good candidate. I'm excited about her. I mean, I supported her candidacy, if not that she was the only candidate that I liked, but I liked that she was running for president when she was. She's shown herself as a really accomplished legislator in terms of really showing, especially during her committee hearings, where she's really fighting or with precision for information that we need as Americans, to know more about our government. So I think that's great on her. I think there's something to be said about the representation aspect of it. It's really good to see a Black woman on a major party ticket. And I think that's something to be proud of and to take pride in. I mean, I'm more inclined with politicians to not look at them as heroes, more as public servants. It's like, who do I want to be my public servant? And you know what? What I don't require is intellectual purity. Which I don't require is perfection. But what I do require is a demonstrated commitment to doing the work and having some sort of sense of what is right and wrong, and someone who is capable. I mean, all of the things that we do not get from the current administration, and quite frankly, we don't get all the time, even in Democratic administration. So it's something to be proud of. I mean, I agree. I think add the pressure, criticize her record, hold her feet to the flame. Just because she's a Black woman doesn't mean she gets to do hateful or discriminatory things. However, what I do feel that, unlike the current administration and unlike a lot of politicians, I think she has a willingness, would have a willingness, to grow and listen. And I mean, nothing's more demonstrative than that. She was out there with the Black Lives Matter protests.
Yeah, she was.
Even though a lot of what Black Lives Matter protests were calling for was the abolition of her former career as a prosecutor. I mean, if she was a cop, she's a cop, and it hold that against her. But that doesn't mean that she's not a good candidate. It doesn't mean that you can't be excited about her candidacy. I think what you really want is a grown-up in the room, and
good point.
And I think that's what she has to offer. So it's exciting, but I hear it all, and honestly, the best way that I can reconcile the valid criticisms is that she deserves to be critiqued. Her record has some things that are questionable and offensive, but that doesn't mean that disqualifies her from being presidential candidate. And that also means that just because we're supporting her, or just because I support her, her candidacy, does not necessarily mean that I think that she gets a pass.
Right. And that's the thing about, politicians. We're like, well, it's especially during these times where it's like anybody, anybody but, right, the other person. It's like, okay, well, while we still look at it as like, okay, well, yeah, we're not giving her a pass, we shall hold them accountable. What you've done in your professional life, whether in the past or even in present and Congress, you want to bring that into your next political role. So it's, we should, be mindful of all this, and we should see, how do you still plan to govern? Are you going to govern differently? Are you going to, hold the criminal justice system accountable, right? All the things that she has represented in the past, what does that look like now in the future moving forward? So she does support many, whether it's her agenda when she was running for president, and whether her being out, in the trenches with Black Lives Matter, all that matters so much. But now we also have to see how it translates for the rest of the country, and, not just for Black America, but truly for Black America. And I root for everybody Black, but definitely for the whole country at large, because we have, there's so much difference in this country, and there's, especially with these political views and these foundations, right?
Yeah.
So we also have to make sure that, okay, what are you going to do to kind of bring us back to, I don't think this country has ever been at peace, but what are we going to do to try to
bring us towards peace, right?
That's right. We are in a space where we need to correct wrongs with this country, systemically in our institutions, especially in our government. And I think that especially communities of color are going to hold her to that as vice president. Biden, we haven't even talked about him. He will be president.
This is not about him, because that's,
I know.
This is about her.
It is, but it's hard.
Him. I think
we are, and we're definitely proud of her. But she's definitely going to be, on his ticket, supporting his agenda, and I'm really excited to hear what she has to say on, like, in supporting his ticket and his platform, but also what her platform will be as vice president. During
one thing to note about her being vice president to Joe Biden has been, people have called him one of the most historically significant vice presidents in U.S. history, because he had such a positive working relationship with Barack Obama, who then provided Biden opportunities to take on portfolios. So he wasn't just somebody sitting in an empty chair, and hopefully you see that reflected. And you also see that Biden himself also pushed Obama to take gay marriage, for example. Right. Biden came out in favor of gay marriage before Obama, but Obama soon came thereafter in support of it. The one thing that I would say as like my final thoughts about, this discussion, there's so much more to say, but is I think criticize her, but one of the things I do not like is invalid criticism. Even criticism, critique her, go in and analyze her record. But one of the things I don't like is somebody saying, "Oh, she's a prosecutor," as if that's the end all be all of a criticism, when that's not necessarily. That's not fair in terms of that there are decent and good prosecutors who, although they are a part of the system of a criminal justice system that is unfair, but they are doing the Lord's work. They're doing good work. And so you spit in a lot of those faces of people doing real work to help make the system more fair when you say that. And regardless of whether you approve of this system or not, it's not just enough to say she's a prosecutor, to say that as a criticism. I mean, on the other side of things is the ugly criticism that will take place that is misogynistic, which is racist, which will be just ugly. And that's something that I'm not excited to see over the next couple of months. I don't want to see a Black woman denigrated. I mean, criticize her based off of her work, not off of her looks. The NRA tweeted something so ugly, like in terms of putting a filter on something just to make her look uglier, which in and of itself is a problem
It's
of what women face in politics. And if women can face it, Black women will have to face it worse. I mean, if the country already hates them, they're going to hate her on the national stage.
Nation, right? But yeah, I agree. I'm not looking forward to what the media will try to portray her as. I'm not looking forward to it at all, because again, she is a Black woman, and it will reflect downward, right, to all the other Black women. So that's definitely something to think about. Don't look forward to it, but nonetheless, I'm thrilled.
Yeah, and sure, it is something very exciting. It's very historical,
yeah.
but I mean, it is something that is challenging to progressives in terms of her former policies and how she acted as the AG of California, and so. But it is something important. It is something to be celebrated. But just because you celebrate it, and because it's important, does not mean that you take your foot off her neck. And I mean that in the nicest way possible.
I understand. I see what you're saying. We got to hold all of our politicians accountable, one way or the other. Well, thank you for this conversation.
No, thank you. I just it's good to get these thoughts out.
Yeah, I definitely want to, hear from our friends, hear from our family, on their thoughts.